Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe and healthy. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So, hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Bayer. I am the Marketing Communications Manager at Clever Devices. I'd like to thank you all for joining our webcast on our BusTime emergency response features. We understand that this past week and every day since, there have been changes surrounding the COVID-19 virus and what that means for your city. As more and more governors and mayors are calling for a shelter-in-place order that ultimately keeps more people at home, your ridership will unfortunately decrease. As your ridership declines and your schedules adjust to meet demand, it's more important than ever to keep those riders who can't stay home informed. We wanted to help you easily provide this information to your riders. That's why we put together this webcast for this afternoon. We will be taking questions following the demonstration. Please type your question into this attendee panel that you see. We'll do our best to answer everyone's questions. If we are unable to get to you, we will follow up by email. We want to make sure everyone's questions are answered and everything that you've seen today is cleared up. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today, Jeffrey Hanft. Jeffrey is a product manager here at Clever Devices and has been for almost a year. He comes to us from New York City Transit, where he spent a little over 5 years as their principal transportation planner. So he's very knowledgeable about all things transit. Jeffrey focuses on our real-time passenger information solutions and has put together the following demonstration on BusTime's emergency response features. And now I'll pass this off to Jeffrey. Jeff?
All right, thank you, Sarah, and thank you for the introduction. And then thanks to all of you that are joining today to review the BusTime features that can support communications with your ridership. Obviously, these features can be used in day-to-day communications relevant for transit providers, but would certainly be beneficial in these kinds of times to communicate to riders what's going on with regards to service changes, perhaps decreasing service levels, changing travel plans, or other relevant information that you may want to pass along from other government agencies and partners. So for some of you, this may be new content. Others may have seen this just once before, and still others may regularly administer service bulletins, but are interested to learn more. So I'll try to keep that in mind as we go through this presentation today. I wanted to start with a high-level view of how and where BusTime allows for riders to be communicated with. So each of your properties will have unique configurations and different BusTime features enabled, and this overviews the entire ecosystem of passenger communications available. So starting at home or at work, kind of from a PC, there's information available via websites and email alerts. But then out there in the field at bus stops, at stations, and at transit centers, as well as onboard vehicles, we can communicate through riders through LED and LCD signage, as well as onboard signage. And then really anywhere your riders are through mobile devices. We support SMS alerts, email alerts, mobile websites and mobile apps, Twitter, and then any other third-party integrations supported by our BusTime API and through the GTFS RT. And so with all that in mind, I'd want to switch over to a demonstration of how to administer service bulletins from within BusTime. So Sarah, I'm going to there we go, thank you. So just to note that I'll be demoing software version 6.6, which is our latest and greatest software release. Not everyone will be on that version, so everything I show may not appear exactly identical to what you're familiar with, but the relevant setup and instructions remain the same. So launching BusTime from the desktop icon. All right, so service bulletins are managed from View, Service Bulletin Management. And this launches the Service Bulletin Manager. Existing service bulletins can be enabled, disabled from here, as well as updated or deleted. Just kind of validate that. You can see options to update, delete, or deactivate selected service bulletins, and I'll just drill down into one that's already been drafted. But for this exercise, we'll initiate a new service bulletin and go through the steps from the very beginning. The leftmost icon is to add a new service bulletin. And we start by adding a name, and that's really for an internal reference in management. Let's toggle this over. For internal reference of the service bulletin, this name here. Copying, pasting some ideas just to keep this faster. The priority is automatically set to low. This priority is carried through in the BusTime API, as well as for any of our customers on our legacy websites. It adds to the prioritization and coloring of some of the service bulletins based off of the defined priority. It defaults to enabled upon creation. The cause and effect fields here support the GTFS RT spec for service alerts. These can be completed if the GTFS RT is part of how service bulletins are distributed at your site. So we'll specify this cause as another cause with reduced amounts of service. In addition, the GTFS RT spec allows for an optional URL. You could go in there and provide links to other information that might be relevant. So for example, I've provided a link to the CDC information about coronavirus. All right, and then moving on to adding the text of the service bulletin. Select add. I'll note that other languages are supported. So if you have ridership that may need languages in a secondary language, those can be specified. So we'll start with adding information in a primary language. So I just added the subject line there. This is shown to customers, unlike the name and title that we discussed before. So we want to have a kind of concise description that'll be carried through with the service bulletin. And then 2 text boxes follow. And these are to support the different lengths of text that are feasible at different destinations. So where more detail is allowed, such as at a website or in an email alert, as well as in GTFS RT, the first text box here supports 1024 characters, and that limit is dynamically calculated below. You can see here, noting that we've only used 158 of the 1024 available characters. Where space is more scarce, such as in SMS alerts, signs, or Twitter, fewer characters are allowed, and those unique limits are calculated as well. So in the brief box, you'll see that the SMS character length has been exceeded, turns red to let you know that. So I'll rescind some of this text, and we're within the allowable limits. Finally, it should be noted that with our 6.6 software version, any kind of unique combination of available destinations for the service bulletin can be configured. So here we have website, GTFS RT, email, our API, SMS, signs, and Twitter, all specified as destinations for this service bulletin. Depending on how you manage service alerts, you may have a hierarchy. For instance, things may be, want to be tweeted with more regularity than things that go to an email or a text alert. And so depending on your use of service bulletins at your individual site, you can configure these appropriately. And I'll note that any destinations that are not configured at your site would not be included in this list of checkboxes. So if you don't have any signs or Twitter is not configured, those would not be present. So for the purposes of this, we'll just leave all of the destinations enabled and select OK. At main mode prior to this demo, so we'll just add demo 2. And quickly adding that in Spanish, so there's a live example of Spanish. Putting in the detail. Okay. So now that the text and destinations are defined, we need to apply the appropriate affected service down here. So given the particular context for why we're chatting today, all routes, directions, and stops would seem appropriate, but I did want to note that these dropdowns do facilitate and support kind of communicating service bulletins to different geographies. So they can be as specific as a route, direction, or stop that's pre-populated from your schedule, or just going to all locations. It should be noted too that multiple geographies, multiple affected services can be added to an individual service bulletin. So if it's applicable to 1, 2, or 3 routes, you can configure it that way. Similarly, there are advanced scheduling options. So that could be used to distribute something that may be appropriate to be shown on weekdays, or for instance on weekday during the rush hours, or maybe weekend nights, something like that. We'll leave this to just all times. Okay, and selecting OK. With that, we have distributed to the destinations specified upon creation. And I'll just review a few of the destinations that we sent them to. All right, so opening up a web browser. For those of you that may not be familiar with this is our latest and greatest website, real-time passenger information offering. We call it the responsive website. That's because it dynamically responds to any sort of device size that it's on, everything from smallest mobile devices to a desktop PC. This is the homepage of that, and what you can see from this exclamation point icon is that there are 2 service bulletins to be viewed. Here's the second one that I added live with all of you here, and one that I had pre-configured just in case I'm working from home on VPN and not everything goes well with that. Want to see this for a Spanish user, going to, for example, here our real-time map. The header remains the same with the exclamation point icon showing that there are 2 service bulletins, and you can see that the Spanish text specified comes through for the Spanish responsive website user. Those of you who may be more familiar with our, we'll call it our legacy website offering, you can see that again, slightly presented slightly differently, but there are 2 service alerts present here. I had specified a high priority for the one that we configured together. Drilling down into that, we can see that the text detail that was provided just a few moments ago is presented and communicated through to the passengers. All right, and then Twitter, this one has maybe taken a few more moments for the service bulletin to reach. So in the case that it doesn't arrive within a reasonable time here, we'll just note that I did in the same fashion that I had provided a kind of pre-configured service bulletin here prior to this meeting that did in fact get delivered to the Twitter handle that BusTime tweets to. Give that one more chance to refresh. If not, all right, I think we'll just go through with the pre-configured one, but within just a few moments, that tweet, that service bulletin should be tweeted to this location as well. All right. So with that concludes what I wanted to share about administering service bulletins, but I did want to go in and show how Twitter can be configured at your site, just because it really can be done in under just a few minutes here. So from within configuration, system, and then somewhat predictably the Twitter tab, we can review the setup. So this is the account that it's currently configured to tweet from. I'm just going to remove that and go through this process again. So just defining the Twitter handle, selecting the prompt to authorize, allowing Twitter to authorize the app, grabbing the authorization pin, and then just dropping it into the appropriate point there. I'll pause to note that This can be configured so that a particular Twitter handle tweets service alerts for a given route. That's how many of our partner agencies kind of have unique feeds for individual service alerts for a given route. We'll leave this account to handle service alerts for system-wide information, and then select OK. And with that, Twitter is configured for use with BusTime. All right, and with that, that concludes what I wanted to share about administering the bulletins and configuring Twitter. A lot was covered in a short time, and I hope that that highlighted how ridership can be reached across multiple platforms, but administered from a single point. And with that, I'll turn this back over to Sarah.
Thank you, Jeff. So I would like to just show my screen really quickly. So we are going to be going over questions now. So we have about 14 minutes for questions. So we have a good amount of time. I do want to start with one that we received earlier today from Paul Haynes from New Jersey Transit. He was asking how to disable bus time predictions across multiple lines. And I believe I also have a very similar question from James McBride in the question panel about turning off routes that are not being run, both online and possibly via a smartphone. Jeff, can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure, and if you want to give me back control, I can show where we would administer some of these actions in the BusTime administration console.
Absolutely, I'll do that right now.
All right. Maximize this. All right, so from within the BusTime administration console, going to View, Route Monitoring. You can see the whole list of routes here, and the broadcast column shows whether or not the predictions are being distributed. And so clicking into that gives you the option to toggle the predictions to be enabled or disabled. So specifying that to disabled would not keep predictions from being generated, but it would keep them from being distributed to all the places that the public would see those predictions. And so kind of thinking about this in the context of a global pandemic that's affecting all of your service, I kind of recognize that it may be a bit cumbersome to go through and do that on a route by route basis. I think kind of the use case that this had been defined for was individual routes or subsets of routes that maybe had schedule issues or particular service issues where we'd want to keep predictions from being distributed. Currently the way this needs to be done is on a route by route basis to go ahead and disable those predictions. And again, that was access from View, Route Monitoring. Okay. Any other questions, Sarah?
Does anyone have any additional questions? We do have one that says, will this presentation be available after today? Yes, it certainly will. We will be posting this online for your use if you want to send this to anyone else that you know in your organization that may need this information. We will be providing that after this, the end of this call. So does anyone have any additional information regarding what you may need to know for your bus time in these coming weeks? Okay. If anyone, so I'm actually going to take the presentership over quickly. And I will just let everyone know if we haven't answered your question. Oh, I'm sorry, I actually did receive one more question. Can this be done on a smartphone? Can this information be handled over a smartphone?
Yeah, so for right now, this has to be done via the BusTime admin console. So done from whichever computer that you have the application installed on.
Okay. And what is the, so I have a a question from John Zarbo. What is the purpose of the cause and effect dropdown?
Yeah, so that's part of the GTFS RT specification and its mandatory fields. So I'll go just quickly run through and read what those are, but those are really just to keep compliance with how the GTFS RT spec has been written. They include things like other cause, technical problem, strike, demonstration, accident, holiday, weather, maintenance, construction, police activity with the effect, reduced service, significant delays, detour, additional service, modified service, stop, moved, other effect, unknown effect. And again, those fields or drop downs are not defined by us. They're defined by Google as part of the GTFS specifications.
Okay, great. So Jeff, I'm actually gonna, so I have another information here. Can you show how a web link or URL looks in those actual alerts, or is it just a static text that can be seen in the alerts? This is from Jeff. I'm sorry, Jeff, I can't pronounce your last name. Spontia? I apologize. But Jeff, I'll hand you over the presentership if that's something that you're able to show.
Well, what I can speak to is, when we provided in the additional information URL there, that is again also a GTFS RT field, so that would be passed through in the GTFS RT service alerts. You could include a link in your detail, and that would maybe appear as text or an active link depending on where it's showing up, right? So you can include, in addition to, there's the URL field, but for other service bulletin destinations, you can include a URL as well. And like I said, it kind of depends on where it's going. It would be live in an email or tweet and things like that.
Great. So I do have another question that says, oh, go ahead.
I can update the service bulletin we just created to include the link, and we can show what that would look like in the website if we're interested in that.
Yeah, I think that could be interesting. So would you like me to pass the presentership over to you?
Sure.
Great.
So here is a service bulletin that had just the link to the CDC information about coronavirus linked to it. And so it has some text. And then I just kind of copy and pasted a URL there, and it launches the URL.
I do have a few more questions that are in the queue. Sandra Lewis Williams asks, what is the purpose of the priorities drop down?
So yeah, that appears in two places. It's carried through our BusTime developer API. So anybody who is using that API and wanted to do something with regards to priority could. And then the other way that it's really visible is here in our legacy website, this color hierarchy. Red means highest tier, orange means medium priority, and then white would be lowest priority.
Okay. So we found that setting up Twitter to receive any, that when we send an alert for a single route or multiple selected routes, that these do not go on Twitter. Can this be set up to any and then all individual routes? That's from Jerediah. Again, I'm sorry about the last names. Brianic. Sorry about that.
So yeah, so I think the question is, right now maybe you have, let's say route A has a Twitter handle, and the comment is that only service bulletin alerts that are associated with route A are distributed to that Twitter handle. That's the intended behavior. So if you wanted things to go for all system-wide, you need a Twitter handle that's dedicated for system-wide service alerts.
Okay, will we have tech support available to assist with setting this up? This is from Mark Clyde. Maybe this isn't a question for the product team. It may be a question that we need to pose for the service team. But I think, Jeff, unless you have additional information, I think, Mark, if you speak with your account manager, we may be able to get you additional information on this.
Yeah, I mean, I would note that I don't know if a question was more broadly for different kind of BusTime features, if it was narrower down just to Twitter. Again, I don't think, I think the Twitter integration is rather simple, and really just making sure that you have an available Twitter handle that can be dedicated to tweet from. Those configuration steps should be able to be done, I think, on your own, kind of just reviewing the steps that we went through earlier. But otherwise, if it's a more detailed question, Sarah, I think you're right.
Okay, great. Do we have any additional questions for the audience? Okay. All right, I will take the presentership over. Thank you, Jeffrey.
You're welcome.
So I do want to end this with thank you everyone for joining. I truly appreciate it. If we haven't answered your question, or you would like additional information on the features we've shown, as well as additional information about what we can help you for, please contact your account manager or email us at contactus@cleverdevices.com, and we'll be able to answer any of your questions for you. We are certainly here to help you and your agency during these unprecedented experiences. This is a new thing for all of us. So we are here to help in any way that we can. But thank you so much for joining us today. This, again, will be posted online, and we will be following up with any additional information that we have. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.